Hi, this is Noel Black, producer of The Big Something, and we are going to take a look at some of the towers downtown that we filmed for the video for Normandy. And the first tower that we're looking at here is the tower at Chauve Chapel. And little background, Chauve was designed by Pueblo architect John Gray in the Norman Romanesque style. It was completed in 1931 and even at that time cost over $300,000 to make, but it did employ a great many people in town during the early years of the Depression. It takes its name from Eugene P. Chauve, who, like many people in the area, made his fortune in Cripple Creek. It's made of limestone from Indiana, and it's a non-denominational church, but it was inspired by Winchester Cathedral. And though we're not sure how many examples of Norman Romanesque style architecture there are in Colorado, it is considered one of the finest examples in the state, as you can see. The next place that we shot was at Cutler Hall on the Colorado College campus, which was one of the first building on the Colorado College campus, and it was completed in 1880. It was designed by Boston architectural firm Peabody and Stearns in the collegiate Gothic style. You just don't hear about these styles anymore. One of the most interesting things about the building is that in the early days, it was a prep school, and in the basement, one of the classes that was taught was metallurgy, and probably its most famous student was Winfield Scott Stratton, who eventually discovered the Independence Mine at Cripple Creek, which he sold for a cool $10 million in 1899. And the building currently houses the admission department. In these pictures here, you can see this lift, and we want to thank the gentlemen who were there on campus painting. It was probably the coldest day of this particular fall that we were up there, and the snow was blowing quite hard, as you can see in the video. Here we are looking, of course, at the Pioneers Museum, which was originally built as the El Paso County Courthouse and was the tallest building in Colorado Springs at the time it was built. And the clock tower, which you see here, and we're going to see the inside of it as well, and you see that in the video, was there because it was the town timekeeper. It was designed by architect A.J. Smith and completed in 1903. It was incredibly controversial at the time. This was the only building that A.J. Smith ever designed, and afterwards he went off to manufacture bathroom fixtures. The clock tower has been operational since the building's completion. A second mechanical clock mechanism was installed in 1913. The original one was a pendulum mechanism, and there have been plans for many years to bring the pendulum back, but that has not happened. And its bell was chimed first upon the death of, yes, Winfield Scott Stratton. Here we are looking at the tower at First United Methodist Church downtown. It was built in 1902 for a cost of $90,000 on land donated by William Lennox. T.P. Barber was the architect, and here we're looking down into one of the levels that you climb up. You climb up these sort of staggered, Craig Richardson called them like Donkey Kong levels on these metal ladders, and then you get up into the tower, and there's not much to see other than these graded metal screens that are over each of the windows. And here's some of the views. There are the Carillon speakers. Anyway, it was freezing. Here we are looking at First Congregational Church over on Tejon and St. Vrain. This church was designed by Henry Rutgers Marshall, and it was completed in 1888. It is, quote, one of the foremost representatives of the Richardsonian Romanesque architecture in Colorado. I love all these different architecture styles, and I hate to say this, but you just have to with something like this. They just don't build them like this or like any of the others anymore. These are just incredible examples of kinds of architecture that you could not replicate today. And the more time you spend sort of poking around in these buildings, you realize that these absurd costs, building these buildings for $300,000 or $90,000 for the United Methodist Church is just an absurdity. And it would cost, millions and millions of dollars to even begin to think about replicating these designs today. Anyhow, it's also one of the last standing examples of Marshall's work, the only other remaining one being the Rudyard Kipling House in Brattleboro, Vermont. Finally, we went to Grace Episcopal Church, and Grace has an interesting history. Built in 1925, and the first service was held in 1926. It was, at the time, a combination of two Episcopal parishes. The original Grace is the building east of the post office on Pikes Peak, which became later the Village Inn and is now, I think, called Lucky 13, one of those nightclubs downtown. And then St. Stephen's was built where you currently see it on Tejon. E. Donald Robb was the architect of this particular building from Boston, and he was also one of the architects for the National Episcopal Cathedral in Washington, D.C. The estimated cost of the church at the time was $253,000, again unthinkable in today's terms, but the actual cost was closer to $300,000. Again, this is in 1925. Even after the church was built, they didn't have quite enough money to finish these incredible spires that you see here. So they had a tower fete and encouraged the residents of the city to help pay for it. So they got together at the city auditorium and had an English theme party, had 25 booths, a high tea, food bazaars, and a tower birthday cake. This party was held for 2 days and 1 night, and hundreds of people bought dollar certificates to help the church pay for a stone for Grace's Tower. So these kinds of fundraisers that people do now, common even then. Wanted to point out that in these slides of us climbing up the tower, that it is that tallest tower in the front there that you see, and it's marked 97 feet at the top in pencil on one of the bricks, and I have incredible vertigo, but I followed Rents up to the top to take these pictures on this rebar ladder that goes up. And I love that there's a satellite dish up top here. But they're just incredibly beautiful. And it's sad that they are also crumbling a bit, falling apart. You see pieces of the spires there on the roof. But it is just such a lovely example of this style of architecture and just such a lovely piece of the Colorado Springs downtown horizon. So here's looking into the door, into the tunnel that goes down. So I'm going to end here, but this was it was a lot of fun to shoot this video, to climb up on top of all the towers downtown. We obviously didn't get to all the churches and all the towers because not all of them were suitable for filming. But I just want to thank all the folks from all the different churches and organizations that led us up into their towers, and enjoy the video.